Well, I wanted to shoot a quick video, and if you're wondering why I'm showing a little breeder box, hang on the side breeder box, that's filthy, I promise there's a reason. So this breeder box is covered in brown diatom algae, and then you can see inside the little straw or pipe that goes up with air that pushes the water up into this to recirculate back out is also covered in brown diatom algae on the inside. And I promise there's a reason I'm showing you this. Brown diatom algae is a part of a newly set up system cycling and maturing and becoming its own little ecosystem. So this system, even though it's hooked up to this 38-gallon Planet aquarium, which doesn't have brown diatom algae anywhere to be seen in it, and it doesn't grow in here anymore, is getting diatom algae on it because it's a new system. It's only a few weeks old, and that means it's going to go through this cycle. Now, given time, this will all die off. Eventually, the diatom algae will go away. And I know this because I've gone through it in tank after tank at this point. A lot of times you will see people that are breeding fish or have fish rooms, and they do tremendous water changes. And so they'll change 50% of the water, sometimes more, every day, every other day, multiple times a week. And they struggle with brown diatom algae, and they don't even necessarily have that much light on it. This only gets ambient light from the tank next to it. You know, the other tanks in the room and the room light. It doesn't have its own light over it. And they do all these water changes, so the nutrient content in the water is also fairly low. Well, diatom algae, as I said, is a natural part of a cycling and establishing new system. Now, if you have a system set up and you constantly struggle with diatom algae, I'm sure there's exceptions to this rule, but in general, that means that your system is not what we might call seasoned or matured. It's like the cycle is getting interrupted and it keeps having to start over. And so you just battle with this ugly brown algae all the time. Well, if you will stop disrupting the cycle and let the tank mature, it will establish its own little ecosystem, its own balance, its own equilibrium, where it doesn't have brown diatom algae in it anymore, and or very, very little. And I don't get any in my tanks anymore. I get the green spot algae. Sometimes I'll get a crop of hair algae. I will get black beard algae sometimes, but I don't get the brown diatom algae. So yes, I still get algae, but I don't get diatom algae. Now, what will happen after diatom algae is hair algae. You'll have a big infestation of hair algae. But if you let your tank go, and I don't mean you don't do any maintenance and you don't do any care and you don't pay attention at all. What I mean is you stop doing water changes every day that are 30, 50, 70% water changes, or every couple days. And you let the system not just go through a nitrogen cycle, but go through a cycle where everything in the tank matures. All the living things mature. You will reach a point where you don't have brown diatom algae anymore, where hair algae is much more rare and less common. Now, there could be other things contributing, like lighting, nutrient content, all that stuff. So check that stuff too. If that stuff is in check, though, in balance, then something else is going on. And my suspicion is that it's an out of balance system, that the cycle or the maturation process of that system keeps getting disrupted. And I think a lot of times that happens from keeping it too clean. For example, I don't gravel the vacuum hardly at all. I might do a quick surface siphon over the gravel if it's looking particularly dirty or full of detritus more than normal, in which I'll just hover the siphon over the surface of the gravel and suck off the top. But I don't actually stick it down in the gravel and suck all the waste out. I have gone back to doing weekly water changes that are probably around 30%, but that's once a week. It's not every day. And that's mostly to benefit the plants, because the plants pull micronutrients and minerals out of the water, and it's easier where I live to replenish a lot of those because we have hard water by doing a water change than it is to add lots of special fertilizers. We also tend to have ammonia in our water out of the tap, and there are people in my community that really, ammonia in the water really affects them, but my systems, it doesn't. So far I have no problems with putting water that might have 0.5 or 1 part per million ammonia in it, which is a lot of ammonia, and topping off with it. The plants just consume it, and it doesn't phase anything. And I have very heavily stocked tanks too, like this 29 over here. And the plants just consume everything, all the nutrients, all the waste. So I do water changes more to help the plants than to help the fish. Now this tank I did gravel back a little bit recently because I did a treatment on the tank. So, but anyway, my advice is to let your aquariums naturalize over time and reach a point of balance rather than constantly interfering.